Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're tackling something that might not be on everyone's radar, but trust me, it's worth understanding. Gallbladder polyps.
Definitely worth understanding.
We're diving deep into some awesome research from the Center for Digestive Health and Nutrition.
Published just this past January.
And while medical stuff can sometimes be, well, a little intimidating,
Yeah.
we promise to break it down in a way that's clear, engaging, and hopefully even a little fun.
You know, it's funny, most people with these polyps don't even realize they have them.
Really?
Yeah, they often just pop up as a surprise.
Like during a scan for something else.
Exactly. Like, oh, hey, look what we found.
An unexpected bonus.
Haha, yeah, a bonus you didn't order.
So, okay, before we get to how these sneaky things are discovered, let's back up a bit. What exactly is a gallbladder polyp?
So in the simplest terms, it's a small growth, kind of like a little bump on the lining of your gallbladder. And here's the good news. The vast majority of these polyps are benign.
Benign, meaning?
Not cancerous, so no need to hit the panic button just yet.
Okay, that's reassuring. But if they don't usually cause symptoms, and they're typically harmless, why should we even care? What makes them appear in the first place?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. You see, researchers are still trying to figure out the exact causes.
Ah, so a bit of a medical mystery.
Exactly. But we do have a few prime suspects.
Lay it on me. Who are the usual suspects in this gallbladder drama?
Well, one of the biggest culprits is cholesterol imbalance.
Cholesterol, huh?
Yeah, you know how it's known for clogging arteries?
The heart health villain.
Exactly. Well, turns out it can also build up in the gallbladder and form those little bumps we're talking about.
So like a tiny cholesterol deposit hanging out in your gallbladder.
Pretty much. Hence the name cholesterol polyp. But it's not just about your overall cholesterol levels. It's more about the balance of different types of cholesterol and how well your body processes it all.
So it's a bit more nuanced than just, oh, my cholesterol's high.
Definitely. And there are other factors at play too, not just cholesterol.
Okay, what else is on the list? Give us the rundown.
Well, inflammation is another big one. You hear about it everywhere these days, and for good reason. It's like a common thread in so many health issues.
Right.
And when it comes to gallbladder polyps, chronic inflammation, which could be triggered by things like gallstones, for example, seems to make polyps more likely to form.
Inflammation, the body's way of saying, hey, something's not right here.
Yeah.
But chronic inflammation is like that friend who never stops complaining but never takes action.
That's a great way to put it. And then we've got this lovely substance called gallbladder sludge.
Sludge. Okay, sludge doesn't exactly sound appealing. Paint me a picture here. What are we talking about?
Imagine, honey, but it's become so thick and crystallized that you can barely pour it. That's kind of what gallbladder sludge is like.
Yo.
Thickened bile that builds up and basically creates this perfect little breeding ground for polyps to form.
Ugh. That's a visual I didn't need. So we've got cholesterol, inflammation, and now thick bile sludge. What a party. Anything else on the guest list we should be wary of?
Well, our source also points to genetics as a potential factor.
Ah, the classic blame it on your parents excuse.
Kind of. Some people might simply be predisposed to developing polyps, just like some families are more prone to certain diseases. It's not something you can control, but it's definitely good to be aware of.
So a combo of lifestyle, body chemistry, and maybe just a dash of bad luck.
Right.
But you mentioned earlier that many folks don't even know they have these polyps.
Right.
So if they're not causing any screaming pain, how are they even diagnosed? Do doctors stumble upon them during routine checkups or something?
Sometimes, yeah. Especially the smaller ones.
Really?
Yeah, they're often found incidentally. Someone goes in for an ultrasound for a completely unrelated reason, and bam, there's a polyp just hanging out in the gallbladder.
Talk about a plot twist. So you could be walking around with this thing and have absolutely no clue until you get scanned for something else entirely.
Exactly. But that doesn't mean they always fly under the radar. Larger polyps, the ones more likely to cause issues, can sometimes make their presence known a bit more forcefully.
Okay, here comes the part I've been dreading. What kind of issues are we talking about?
Well, you have to remember what the gallbladder actually does. It's part of the digestive system, right?
Yeah,
So if there's a large polyp taking up space in there, it can cause blockages or even irritate the lining of the gallbladder.
Leading to?
Some discomfort, usually in the abdomen.
Okay, so what kind of discomfort? Give it to me straight.
Well, it can vary from person to person, but some folks experience a kind of dull ache or a feeling of fullness, specifically in the upper right side of their abdomen.
Right where the gallbladder is.
Right. So if you're experiencing those kinds of symptoms, especially in that specific area, it's definitely a good idea to get checked out.
Good advice. So let's say you have those symptoms, or maybe a polyp decided to photobomb your latest scan. How do doctors actually confirm the diagnosis? Is it straight to surgery?
Not at all. Diagnosing gallbladder polyps is usually pretty straightforward.
Okay.
The go-to tool is often an ultrasound. It's painless, non-invasive, and uses sound waves to create a picture of what's happening inside. They can usually spot polyps quite easily with that.
Ultrasound, the classic.
Yeah. And once they have a clear diagnosis, that's when they can start talking about treatment options.
All right, let's talk treatment. What are we looking at here? Is it automatic surgery if you have a polyp?
Not necessarily. The approach really depends on a few things, mainly the size of the polyp and whether it's causing any symptoms.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Not at all. For small polyps, those under 10 millimeters, doctors often recommend a wait-and-see approach.
Wait and see. So no need to panic right away.
Exactly. Especially if it's not causing any problems, they'll just monitor it with regular imaging to make sure it's not growing or causing any trouble.
Like keeping an eye on a mischievous puppy to make sure it's not chewing on the furniture.
Exactly. But what about the larger polyps, the ones over 10 millimeters?
Right. You mentioned those are more likely to cause problems.
Right, and unfortunately, they're also the ones with a higher risk of becoming cancerous. That's where things can get a bit more serious.
Okay, that's the word no one wants to hear. Cancer. So what happens then?
In those cases, doctors usually recommend surgery to remove the entire gallbladder.
They take the whole thing out.
Yeah. It's called a cholecystectomy, and it's the most effective way to eliminate the risk of the polyp developing into something more serious.
So they take the whole gallbladder out? What happens then? Can you even live without a gallbladder?
You absolutely can. And the good news is, most cholecystectomies these days are done laparoscopically.
Laparoscopically? What does that even mean?
It means they make just a few tiny incisions and use a camera and special instruments to remove the gallbladder through those small openings.
Oh, wow.
It's minimally invasive, so recovery is usually much faster and way less painful than traditional open surgery.
That's incredible. So even though it sounds scary, it's really not as big of a deal as it used to be.
Exactly. And most people don't experience any major long-term issues after having their gallbladder removed. Your body adapts quite well.
That's really good to know. So we've got observation for small polyps, surgery for larger ones. But before we move on, I have to ask, is there anything we can actually DO to prevent these things from forming in the first place?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. Yeah.
And while there's no foolproof way to prevent them entirely, there are definitely some things you can do to lower your risk. And the best part,
What's that?
they're all part of a healthy lifestyle anyway.
A win-win. You get to be healthy, and potentially avoid gallbladder issues. Tell me everything.
Well, let's start with diet. You know, all those things your doctor probably harps on about. Fruits, veggies, whole grains, lean proteins.
Yeah, the usual healthy suspects.
Yeah.
But how does that relate specifically to gallbladder polyps?
One thing that's really important is fiber. You know how great fiber is for digestion?
Keeps things moving, right?
Exactly. Well, it seems to help keep things moving in the gallbladder too, potentially reducing that sludge buildup we talked about earlier. And of course, limiting saturated fats and cholesterol is always a smart move.
So basically what's good for your heart is also good for your gallbladder.
Pretty much. It's all about making those smart choices. And of course, maintaining a healthy weight is crucial.
So get moving. But wait, there's got to be more to it than just diet and exercise, right?
You're right. Hydration is key. Drinking plenty of water helps prevent that thick sludge from forming in the first place.
Good old H2O. Can't live without it. Anything else?
One more important one, limit alcohol intake. Excessive alcohol can be tough on the gallbladder, so moderation is definitely key.
All right, so it's all about those healthy habits we know are good for us anyway. But it's good to be reminded.
Exactly. And remember, these lifestyle changes aren't just about polyps. They're about taking care of your overall health and well-being.
Love that. It's a holistic approach.
You know, prepping for this, something that really stood out to me from our source material was just how much emphasis they put on the size of these polyps.
Yeah, it seems like that 10 millimeter mark is kind of a magic number, right? A real turning point in how doctors decide what to do.
Absolutely. Anything smaller than that is generally considered pretty low risk, so doctors often take a watch-and-see approach. No need for drastic measures right away.
Right, like we talked about in the last part. Watchful waiting is the name of the game.
Exactly. But once a polyp crosses that 10 millimeter threshold, the concern about it becoming cancerous really starts to climb.
So it's almost like that size is a big red flag, like a warning sign that things could potentially take a turn.
That's a great way to put it. Larger polyps have a much higher chance of developing into gallbladder cancer, and that's why doctors are more likely to recommend surgery to remove the entire gallbladder if a polyp gets that big.
It's a tough call though, right? Weighing the risks of surgery against the risks of leaving a larger polyp untreated. And I imagine those risks are probably different for everyone, depending on their overall health and other factors.
You're absolutely right. That's why it's so important to have those open and honest conversations with your doctor if you do get diagnosed with a gallbladder polyp. They can help you weigh the pros and cons based on your specific situation, your medical history, any other conditions you might have. It's a team effort.
So it's all about making an informed decision together. But let's shift gears a little bit. We've been talking a lot about the medical side of gallbladder polyps, but what about the emotional impact of a diagnosis like this? I imagine it can be pretty stressful for people, especially if they're facing the possibility of surgery.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely not just about the physical symptoms. It's about how we process this kind of information, how we deal with the fear of the unknown. And having to make big decisions about our health can be scary.
Exactly. It's not just about the physical stuff. It's about how we cope with the emotional roller coaster that can come with a diagnosis like this.
Right.
I'm all about empowering patients with knowledge, so tell me more.
Well, this study found that when patients are really well informed about their condition, they understand the ins and outs of it, the different treatment options, the potential risks and benefits, they actually tend to have better outcomes overall.
That makes a lot of sense. When you really understand what's going on, you're more likely to feel in control, make decisions that are right for you, and really actively participate in your own care.
Exactly. And it can also help reduce anxiety and stress, which, as we were just saying, can have a huge positive impact on someone's overall well-being.
Knowledge is power,
Yeah.
right? And that's one of the things I love about what we do here on the Deep Dive. We're giving you the information you need to really understand what's going on, ask good questions, and advocate for your own health.
And speaking of resources, I have to give a shout out to the Center for Digestive Health and Nutrition. They've been a fantastic source of information for this deep dive.
They really are an excellent resource for anyone who wants to learn more about digestive health in general.
Their website is packed with information. They're super active on social media. They've got a great team of experts who are really dedicated to providing top-notch care.
Yeah, so if anyone out there is concerned about gallbladder polyps or any other digestive issues, definitely check them out.
Absolutely. They're a great resource for navigating the sometimes confusing world of digestive health.
Definitely. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of gallbladder polyps.
We hope you learned something new today.
We'll see you next time. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and stay healthy.